Hi, I'm Patricia Grabarek.
And I'm Katina Sawyer, and welcome to the Workr Beeing podcast. Today, Patricia has an article for us. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about your topic?
Yes. So, my article is about activity trackers like Fitbits and those types of things.
Ooh.
And it's about having a workplace activity tracker and coaching interventions and whether that can help improve physical health of employees and if it can help reduce burnout.
Ooh.
Spoiler alert,
fun.
it's not as positive as you think it would be. Dun, dun, dun. It doesn't help as much as you would want it to. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, good, because I actually don't wear an activity tracker, so I don't want it to. Boo-hoo.
Well, it helps make people move.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But it doesn't actually reduce burnout. That's the word I'm looking for. It doesn't actually impact burnout in a real way. So I'll talk about it more. But yeah, I think it kind of echoes a point that we make a lot around how, having these kind of fun, buzzy things to try to improve workplace wellness isn't always the best approach. Having autonomy, having flexibility, having good managers and good coworkers and a good culture are usually more important. So
yes, I agree. Yeah, we're always there's always weird things that are buzzy happening in the world, and if it brings you joy and all you expect from it is joy, then do what you wish. But if you expect an outcome or an impact or a return, then you need to make a better investment, especially if you're a business. If you're a person, hey, you want to put crystals all over your desk, have some crystals, that's fine. You want a salt lamp, go for it. But it's not going to make you do better. So yeah, I think it's in the same realm of it's almost guilty until proven innocent kind of when it comes to these fatty things.
Agreed. I totally agree. And so I was debating whether or not to talk about this article because I was it doesn't actually give us tips in terms of reducing burnout and improving workplace wellness. But then I was but it kind of tells you what not to count on. So that's also a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
But before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that when this episode airs, Allie, our producer, will be about to have a baby or have just had a baby. So yay, congrats to Allie. And
baby.
but we've been recording all of these in advance in a batch process. So if we're talking about things that are no longer relevant in our casual conversation, we're currently in quarantine right now, maybe that is happening, maybe that's not at this point. I think it probably is for all of us, at least for me and Katina, but we'll see. I don't know. You tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We're waiting. Tell us.
We're waiting back in April and being very concerned as to how long we have to be here.
Yell very loud and maybe we'll hear you in the past. No, but that will be nice if the people listening to us are no longer in quarantine. I feel that will be so happy for everyone involved.
Yeah, maybe you're listening on your commute again. What?
Oh my God. And probably people are going to be so much more grateful for things they used to hate.
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't know. This is going to be launching at the very end of May, so I'm guessing that most people are still probably in their homes, besides our fabulous essential workers out there. But we'll see.
That is true. You are correct about that. Maybe people won't ever appreciate that. I actually, though, yesterday, I drove to our new house, and was that yesterday? Yeah, that was yesterday. And I drove to our new house, and just being in the car and driving somewhere felt very exciting to me.
It is exciting. I'm with you. Just taking even a few minutes just to do a little drive is kind of nice. Oh, I'm out in the world, even though I'm not supposed to be. Ooh, dangerous, but not actually dangerous because I'm in my car alone.
In my own car. I know. I felt really good about it. I was wow, this is glorious. I was well, it was so beautiful here yesterday too for a little while. Mm-hmm. It got kind of crud in the nighttime, but during the day it was glorious day, and I was just windows and the music, and I was la. And I felt really happy with everything. And then I was thinking, like, eventually maybe like getting in the car and driving to a location and like getting out of your house and being able to like arrive at a location and like be present there will actually be like an exciting thing.
I think it will be.
Yeah, it's true.
One day it will happen for us. Hopefully
Yes.
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I would like that. But of course, we both know that we need to do the right thing for the health of the humanity.
Oh,
but
yes.
It is always a good thing to be freed from captivity.
Yeah, we can just look forward to that day. That day is there. We know we have to do what we have to do now, but one day we will be able to do what we want to outside.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, so that's good. How are you doing? What's going on? How is Nittany? It was Nittany's birthday.
It was Nittany's birthday. She was very excited about her birthday. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, right now, she is literally she's sleeping in a bed that I have for her on like a windowsill. Yeah. And she is sleeping in such a way that her head is hanging out of the bed and squished into the window. So she doesn't seem very comfortable right now, but is managing to be asleep. But anyways, yeah, I guess so. But her birthday was good. She got some fun. She got like a little toy, and then we gave her like a different food. So, so she got like a fancy food for dinner. Wow. So I know, spoiled kitty cat.
Can cats do that? Like with dogs, they're like, you have to like take like 800 like preventative steps before your dog can eat a new food. It's like insanity.
So with her dry food, I have to slowly mix it before she can go to new food. But with some of her like canned food, it can be she doesn't seem to get sick if I do it every once in a while. It's like a little treat, something different. So overall she's fine with that. With dry food though, it does have a big impact on her for whatever reason. But she's kind of annoying because she actually doesn't let us do that slow transition. She basically, every year, like once a year, she decides, I'm done with this dry food. I never want to eat it again. Do not show it to me. And she just ignores the food completely. She won't eat it. She just like begs us for other stuff and she won't eat it. So then I'll buy a new food and I'll try to do like the slow transition of a little bit of that, a little bit of the new one. And she just doesn't eat the new one or the old one at all. She'll only eat the new pieces.
So then rude.
Yeah. So then it doesn't really work out. So she ends up getting sick from it. So usually it's like a week of awful and then she's fine. So I don't know. She's a little crazy.
Well, we like by accident. Well, that's not true. I take back the front part of that sentence. We get Donnie's food delivered from Chewy.com because none of the places near us have his food. And it's on like auto delivery. And for some reason, like their auto delivery was just like, I don't know, like I thought I spaced it out appropriately, but like for a while we were just getting like bag of food. And we were like, okay, this is like enough. So I stopped the auto delivery, but then the problem was I never started it again. And so then we started running out of food and Brendan was like, oh, Donnie's almost out of food. And I was like, oh no. And so we had like a tiny bag of food that we could give him in the meantime. So I ordered from Chewy. And in the meantime, for like a week, we gave him this other food and he like ate it, but like so begrudgingly. He was like, ugh, like, he would like get up in the morning and like look at it and be like, no. And then like later he would like go back. And then the first day, so then like finally his food came in, but we like used up the whole bag. So I guess it was like 2.5 weeks or something. We were giving him the other food just like to not waste it. And then when we finally switched over his food, he heard it. He heard Brendan pour it in his bowl from upstairs. And I guess the sound of it is different than the sound of the food he doesn't like. He heard the food and he like became alert and he like ran down the steps and he ate it. Like Brendan was like finishing putting it and he started eating it right away. We were like, wow, I guess you like, I feel bad that we've been feeding this other food because frankly, you're like so excited right now. It's like almost sad.
That's really funny. So he likes the same thing all the time.
Yes. And he like knew the sound. He was like, that's not the food I don't like.
That's really cute.
I enjoy. Yeah.
That's really cute. That's funny. Well, at least you can be consistent. For me, it's like it usually takes a couple weeks for me to realize that she's just in her like protest phase of a food.
Yeah. Yes.
And then it's like a whole thing where I'm like, well, maybe she'll get over her protest, and then she doesn't.
And she doesn't. No.
Yeah.
It's a knee.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Apparently, Donnie's more routine based. She's a spoiled brat. So there you go.
There we go. That's all we have to say about that.
And we're done.
On that note, how about fitness trackers?
Yes. Yeah. So this study, pretty simple study. Well, I wouldn't say simple study at all because of the way the methodology, but the results are simple. So this study was published in the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology. It was written by Lennefer, Looper, Wiedemann, Hess, and Hoppe in 2020. So it's very new, fresh off the press. It's actually published this month. So we're recording this in April. And it is called Improving Employees' Work-Related Well-Being and Physical Health Through a Technology-Based Physical Activity Intervention, a randomized intervention control group study. So what they did is they took, took place in Germany, and they took employees from a company there, and they basically just posted posters everywhere asking people with that had sedentary jobs, so that were considered like at risk for not having enough physical activity, to sign up for this study if they wanted to do it. And what they did is they did it 2 groups. So one group got the intervention right away. The other group got it a little bit later. So they can compare the 2 groups. Unfortunately, they had to give the other group a study or the intervention pretty soon after. So you don't get their data for as long of a period of time, but they looked at the group that took the class initially, or took the intervention, for up to a year. So they had a lot of data on these people. So what they did is they gave, for the intervention, they gave these employees a activity tracker. So it's like, they said the type. It's like a Garmin Vivo Fit 3, whatever that is. So they gave him
my favorite.
Yeah, I don't know my activity trackers. Didn't know what that one was, but that's what they got. They got the tracker, and then they also were given an online coach, which is basically it was an online website where they could go and they can get some advice. They had like goal setting tools in there. They had each week they got like different content. They had a step challenge one week, and it was 3 weeks of having this tracker and then having this online coach.
Okay.
They were able to keep the tracker after the 3 weeks. They didn't like take it away from them, but they had, during this intervention, they had that coaching in addition to it.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
I thought that was interesting. And they did talk about how, like, you know, we do see overall that in other studies that employees that are physically active generally see less burnout. So that's over multiple studies over time. That's what they've seen. And so that's why they wanted to test this tracker, this type of intervention, if that can help with burnout. Unfortunately, this study did not find the same things. But they looked over a longer period of time. And a lot of the other studies were just basically looking at, are you a physically active person and are you not a physically active person? Which one is burning out more? So if you're generally a physically active person, other research has shown you tend to be better off.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So there is a main effect kind of moving, like it makes you move more if you're generally not used to moving as much.
Yes. So in this study, what they find is exactly that. So if I am a person that got through this intervention, then I'm going to have increased physical activity. A year after this intervention, 74% of people were still using the activity tracker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So people were really using it a lot. They measured from a physical health perspective, they measured BMI. So for people that are not familiar, that is a body mass index. It's basically an equation that takes weight and height into account. It's not ideal in a lot of ways, but it's just it's a marker that can look at weight, which can be related to a lot of potential comorbidities. So they looked at BMI and they looked at general health perceptions. So that's basically, I am asked whether or not I feel like I'm healthy. Like, do I think I'm healthy?
Gotcha.
So that's a more subjective approach, but like, you know, if I feel like I'm pretty healthy, that's interesting to know, right? And what they found is that over the whole year, so they looked at, if I did the intervention, they look right after the intervention. So after those 3 weeks, how did I feel? They look 1 month after that. Then they look 3 months after that, and then 1 year after that.
Okay.
So I felt healthier right after the intervention, right after that first month, after that 3 months. But after a year, I kind of went back to feeling the same way I felt before.
Gotcha.
So
and that's not because you said people were still using the trackers later. Is that just of the impact of what had happened before? Or was that because people kind of stopped using the tracker?
Well, most people were still using the tracker, so it wasn't clear as to whether or not that was related to how healthy they perceive themselves. I think it might just be kind of like honestly, I think it's a proximal effect where like I just started working out, so now I feel really healthy, and then eventually that my feelings about that wear down, like, and I go back to what I felt before.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's what they found, but BMI was reduced all the way through. Like, so
that's interesting.
From like a weight perspective, people's weight generally went down over that whole year. So in a physical activity sense, people are more active after this. They feel better for some of the time. Like they think their health is better, and then their weight does generally go down. So physical health, there actually are good results.
Yeah. So it seems like there is an impact on the extent to which people are moving and exercising, potentially, on these outcomes for physical health. But then for the workplace, you mentioned the results don't look as good.
Yes. So when it comes to the 2 workplace metrics they looked at, so they looked at burnout, which we've talked about burnout a bajillion times, but basically it's chronic workplace stress. So it has to do with feelings of exhaustion, feeling disconnected from the work, feeling less effective at work, things like that. Burnout's a super hot topic. I'm sure you all know what that means. They also looked at vigor, and vigor is really around having that high level of energy and resilience at work. So the question they asked for that is, when I get up in the morning, I feel like going to work. Like, you're invigorated, you feel energized. So they thought that if you're more physically active and using these trackers, that you would see reduced burnout and increased vigor.
Okay.
They did not find anything with vigor. So that using these trackers and the coaching with this intervention does not help people feel more energized at work.
And
then
interesting.
Right? And then for burnout, they only found an impact 1 month after the intervention. So for that first month right after, people feel less burnt out. But when they looked 3 months later, when they looked a year later, they were back to their normal levels.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it seems to have some kind of an immediate impact, like you were saying, like maybe people are just excited to be like doing something different, but then it kind of wears off.
Okay. Yeah. And so what I think is happening here, and, I think there's more research to be done in this space, but I think it's a really interesting result because what I believe it's highlighting is we're putting in this physical activity. So now you're doing something that generally makes people feel better, right? We know that physical activity is related to, more endorphins, feeling less depressed, all those good things. But it cannot just get rid of burnout. Like, it can, when you first start it, you start to feel better, but then you probably get into a routine, and now all the things that were causing you to burn out are still there. Like, they don't go away. So if you have a crazy amount of work, or if you're just really unhappy in your job and your manager is mean and whatever, all the different things that could impact your burnout that still exist. So just because you're working out doesn't mean that those things go away. So you're going to burn out still. That's my theory. And I think we need to dig into that more in the research perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not really addressing the primary cause of the burnout, and the impact of it may not be enough. Like you mentioned, there were some positive impacts on physical exercise and BMI and things like that, but it may not be like so much of a resource regenerator that it overtakes the reason why you're actually feeling burnout.
Exactly. And it would be interesting to see, they didn't track like how much physical activity people were still doing at the year mark. So maybe some people that continued it more would be able to, there might be some more results for them. I don't know. We just don't know. The sample's not huge. Whenever you're tracking for some data this long, it can take a lot of effort and to get enough people That's not always easy. So it wasn't a massive sample. So that probably created some barriers to be able to look at those things.
Yeah.
So in the future, I think it'd be really good to understand long term, would this work if you continued being more and more physically active over time? But I think another message is, as an employer, this is not the reason. This is not going to help you reduce stress and burnout in your teams. Like, you need to address the root problem. You do not put a Band-Aid. Do not give people activity trackers and be like, go and walk. Woohoo.
Right.
That's not going to be the solution to all of your problems.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think sometimes people are looking for, like you said, like the trend or the easy fix or the thing that's going to really like, make people feel like, oh, this is a cool place because they gave me XYZ or whatever. But at the same time, it's really important to recognize that like we just saw, the appeal of that wears off over time, as does the benefit. And really what you should be doing is trying to address the stress source, as opposed to trying to give people things to help cope with the stress sort of after the fact. So I think that, the idea here is well taken, that like if you're an individual person, like, we said before, if you're an individual and you really love, wearing a fitness tracker and it helps you get more physical exercise and you feel the benefits of it from that perspective, like certainly go do it. But if you're an employer and you're thinking, wow, seems like everybody's super burnt out around me, maybe I'll just go buy a few thousand fitness trackers, that's probably not the way to get it going.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly the point. And so, like I said, I was deciding whether this article made sense. And I think it really does, because I really want everyone out there to understand that burnout and workplace wellness and all the things that we talk about, where we want to make people have these great work lives where they feel good about what they're doing at work. They feel good when they go home. Like, there's, a lot of happiness, just you're thriving in your work life. That can't happen without the underlying causes being addressed. That can't happen when a work environment is toxic. That can't happen when you have abusive supervisors. That can't happen when you're working 70 hours a week. Like, those things are just not going to happen for you. So we need to be, as a society, like, I'm getting on my soapbox right now, but as a society and all these organizations that we have and companies that we have in our world today, we need to be addressing this more head on and more directly about the causes, and not putting Band-Aids on, and not, giving people yoga classes and gym memberships and things like that, which are great. And I want you to continue to give those things, but it's not going to actually fix the problem.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no reason why you can't actually address the source. Like, those things are all great for employees on top of having a great work environment. And of course, if you are an employee who doesn't have a lot of control over their work environment, of course you might want to participate in some of those things on your own as a buffer. But to think, as an employer who does have more control over these kinds of situations, to actually change the scenario, it seems like that might actually be the better way of going about things.
Exactly. Yep. So my takeaways are, if you want to move more, get a fitness tracker, have fun, but don't expect it to impact your overall burnout and stress levels, and, try to figure out how you can address some of the root causes, or look for other things that might be more related to burnout than this fitness tracker approach.
That sounds good. I like this article. I think it's really helpful because I think a lot of people don't know this information. And so I think it's really useful to get a good science-based approach on something that's pretty popular. But also, I think it's like a pause button, right? Like, it's not to say that you're doing something bad for your team by giving them something like this that might be more of a fatty type thing, but rather to say, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to help employees find an easier way to get some movement in their day? And you think that, it would be a nice gesture, and, potentially down the line, maybe there would be some people who, would continue keeping up with it and inspire them to do other things. Like, sure, maybe, whatever. But if you're really looking to decrease the actual problem that you're having, sometimes you must look within and not externally for your answer, and actually look at, okay, what is it about this organization or this job that is under our control? And maybe we need to start there.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, I'm really happy that you picked this article because I think
Thanks.
this is really useful for people to know.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, we'd love to hear from you. I do wonder if this isn't a slightly controversial take on activity trackers, because we know lots of people love them. But good news, again, it doesn't mean that it's not going to help with your movement. It's just not going to help in all the workplace wellness realms that maybe we'd want it to. But reach out if you have any questions or thoughts. You can find us at workrbeeing.com. You can email us at contact@workrbeeing.com. And you can also find us on social media at Workr Beeing on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks for listening. The Workr Beeing podcast is hosted by us, Patricia Grabarek
and Katina Sawyer, and produced by Allie Johnson.